Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Ted Ings. Today we have Elite Extra. And Ted, rising customer expectations, technician productivity pressure, and staffing shortages have pushed dealers to rethink how parts move, not just how fast, but how predictively and transparently they do. Joining us today is Epicor's Tyler Stevens. And Ted, I'm excited about today's conversation and how dealers are re-architecting their parts operations.
That's right, Sarah. We want to welcome Tyler Stevens from Elite Extra and Epicor Solution to the roundtable. Tyler, welcome and welcome to the event.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ted and Sarah. Appreciate it.
Tyler, it's really top of mind right now, logistics and saving time. And, it seems that every step, every minute, every hour really matters these days. So I want to start, if it's okay, at a high level with you.
Mhm.
For years, parts delivery was treated as a support function, okay? But now it's more strategic, okay, than ever before. Things are changing fast. What has fundamentally changed in fixed operations that's forcing dealers to rethink what we call the last mile delivery as a core operational strategy rather than just as a, let's say, a cost of doing business?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. As Sarah had mentioned, actually, quite a few things at the very beginning that we really see a lot in the dealer space. One of them being that customer expectations. So, as we all know, the Amazons of the world have really kind of moved us to the "I want it now" kind of mindset, whereas before it was okay to get a part to your customer maybe tomorrow or 2 days from now, but now they not only want it today, they want it within an hour in a lot of cases. So that is one of the biggest things. Beyond that, obviously, just staffing shortages. It's difficult to find quality drivers and then to retain them in this market, especially. So the ability to kind of keep those things in play and really make parts delivery a core operational piece rather than just an afterthought is very important.
Well, Tyler, I'm glad you mentioned the staffing shortages because we've actually been talking about staffing shortages for the last couple of years. It's really not a temporary problem anymore. It's actually how a lot of dealerships, it's an operating environment that they're up against, and it's a challenge day to day. How should dealers be thinking differently about delivery staffing, knowing that relying exclusively on in house drivers is becoming harder to sustain?
Yeah, I think it really goes to kind of the need to move to a hybrid model. So, Elite Extra, for example, is kind of where I'll speak to, has what we call delivery network. Think of it as a marketplace for third party or crowdsourced fleets. We're seeing a lot of users, especially in that dealer space, really gravitate towards using companies like a DoorDash, an Uber, a Roadie, Curry, GoShare, Freight. There's a bunch of these that Elite Extra has kind of partnerships with for you. The ability to be able to take an individual delivery and on the fly decide how do I want to get that to my customer is really kind of what we're looking for. Beyond that, there's the ability to kind of judge fixed costs versus those flexible costs. Do you really want to maintain a massive fleet with insurance rates going, gas prices now going the kind of way that they are, among just those fixed costs of are you paying insurance? Are you paying driver salaries and so on? So that hybrid model is
True.
really kind of important now.
True. I like that term as a way to look at it. I want to dig into the process a little bit, Tyler, if I can. Um, Complexity kills efficiency. In an ideal world, what should a modern parts delivery workflow look like for the franchise dealer, from dispatch to drop off to
Yeah,
confirmation?
yeah, no, that's a great question as well. Really, what we're looking for and what we, kind of, I would say dealers expect these days is that kind of automation. So the orders automatically flowing from their DMS system or whatever their ordering system is into Elite Extra or into really any software that they're using. The ability to then kind of have the software make those suggestions for the dispatcher. Where should they go? Who should they hit first? Does this customer have any special needs or restrictions that need to be taken into account? Beyond that, the ability to facilitate notifications to their customers to really reduce those phone calls coming in to say, hey, your part, your product is going to be here, today at 3 p.m. And they have the tracking information and everything that they're expecting from a normal delivery.
Well, Tyler, I'm glad you touched on those notifications because one of the pieces that has been a challenge
Mm,
historically is that communication, back to the dealership, and that uncertainty about where in the process their order or their vehicle is. I want to pivot a little bit to talk about wholesale customers, because
Mhm.
we've often, emphasized at the roundtable that wholesale is still a very important component of a lot of dealerships' business. But wholesale customers want confidence in their parts. Why has delivery visibility become such a critical component of the customer experience in parts operations? And what happens when dealers don't provide it?
Yeah, so, well, I'll answer the last one first. When dealers don't provide it, they tend to go other places. There are a million and one
yeah,
options that they can choose from with the internet to kind of get their parts deliveries. And if you're not providing that real-time, transparent experience of here's your driver's name, here's where they are, here's a little map and you can kind of follow them along to see what's going on, and the proof of delivery photos and signatures, you're really unfortunately lagging behind. Um,
you're
that
right.
would be kind of the main one.
Tyler, that is the expectation. That's exactly it. Yeah, and it's happening in other industries and has for some time, and now we're just now catching up. I want to talk to you though about one more step, and that's the returns. Okay,
Mhm.
we recently had some parts managers on here, and they said, "Hey, wait a second. If you're going to talk about this kind of thing, let's talk about how we handle returns because that is real world." Okay, Tyler, and why have parts returns? Remained one of the least modernized steps in the process in the dealership, and what does that cost the dealer operationally and financially?
Yeah, I would say, obviously financially is the big one. How often have our dealers, kind of gone out and said, "Hey, I found something under the seat. I have no idea where it's from." They don't know what customer it's from. They don't know, if it's even a product that they sold for that matter. Returns is something that Elite Extra has really worked hard to kind of really modernize. It's really kind of, I would say, one of the unique things about us is that we are a full logistical solution from the normal, let's get them to your customer, to the reverse logistics options. How we handle that is, those obviously customer notifications, the ability to have the software kind of digitize your returns policies and process, and really kind of function as the gatekeeper for questions like, did I even sell this product? Where is this product? How do I get it back from my customer? And how do I do all that without losing money? That's really the big question: is this
Yeah.
in something that I can still sell, or do I have to kind of just trash it and move on and eat the cost?
Tyler, there's so many elements of this, from a process and from a technology perspective. And dealers, they care about all of these pieces because technology only matters if it really helps the dealers make better decisions. What data, in your opinion, should fixed ops leaders be paying attention to when it comes to delivery performance? And how does that data change the way that they manage their operation?
Yeah, depending on what solution they use, if they use something like Elite Extra, we're able to take a bunch of the data that they have from time to service, route profitability, driver performance, and then use that data to, kind of adjust their delivery routes. The big ones that I would focus on are the ones that I had mentioned. I always call out that time to service because, again, it meets that Amazon style model of how long is that part just sitting in house? How long is it taking your drivers to deliver it? How long are your drivers staying at those individual locations? Driver performance is one of them too. It goes hand in hand with that. Obviously we're not trying to, big brother the drivers and make sure, that we're watching everything that they're doing, but we do want to make sure that they are doing their jobs and we're giving them the information that they need to do those successfully, efficiently, and be able to get out the door to ultimately deliver more products for you. And then finally, that route profitability. When you're doing your delivery routes, are you actually making money on it, or are you taking a $3 item and you're trucking it 30 miles away because that's just what the customer wants? Those are really important things to kind of use and build your delivery operation around.
It's funny you mentioned that. I just did a panel earlier today on mobile service. Of course, that's going to the customer and
Mhm.
providing service. But one of the things they talked about is the trip value. Okay, and to make sure that when we're doing a trip, okay, and a lot of dealers run their mobile service similar to, let's say, a trucking company, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. And I know parts wholesale delivery is similar. Um, Talk about volume with us. Um, It spikes, it dips, it can
Yep.
surprise you. How can dealers scale delivery capacity up or down without introducing more risk or complexity into the operation?
Yeah, and that's, a great call out, because you have times of year, like right now we're approaching summer, for example, fast, where, people have maybe more disposable income. They want to actually work on their vehicle. They want to get things done to enjoy the summer. But in that same vein, it could just as easily be a very dry month for you. So how you handle that is that hybrid, model that we had kind of talked about a little earlier in the conversation, where, I can have my core group of drivers, maybe 5, 6 guys, gals that I really trust, that I know, are one in 100%, they're on the business. And then I've got some other ones that, maybe I want to outsource to a DoorDash, to an Uber, to a Roadie, to one of these crowdsourced fleets, where in times of high volume, I can get all of those deliveries out the door efficiently, quickly. And in times of maybe less volume, I can kind of scale back to just that core fleet that I know I have.
Well, Tyler, there's a lot of people listening right now who are feeling all these different pressures with last mile logistics and protecting their technician productivity. What closing advice would you give them before they evaluate their next delivery solution?
Yeah, I would say, your technicians and their time are important. Your customers and their time are important. Make sure that whatever solution you pick, whether it's Elite Extra or a different one, for example, that it kind of is vetted out, that you have somebody in your corner that is with you 100%. Again, not to toot our own horn, but we've been in this business for a very long time. We know the auto parts space, and more importantly, we're based in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. That's our entire team, from support to product development and so on. Make sure you have somebody in your corner. Make sure that you have somebody in your technicians' corners, and ultimately your customers' corner, that's really looking out for, what it is that you do.
Sarah, I'm thinking that Tully Williams, the fixed ops director at the Nilo company, okay, very familiar with Elite Extra. And Tully says it's all about the hours. And you know what? That's a great way to relate it as well. It's protecting technician productivity. It's not just moving parts, okay? It's earning the customer trust. Sarah, you recently had a situation with you yourself as the customer waiting on parts to get for your vehicle. I remember you told me the story.
I did, Ted, and Tyler. This is a more important component. As you mentioned, customer time is the most valuable commodity that
Mhm.
we have today, and however we can save those time opportunities where we can have more flexibility in our days by having logistics provide those processes and technology, it really makes a difference. And Tyler, it sounds like tools like Elite Extra are really helping franchise dealerships modernize their last mile logistics and allowing dealers to operate with more confidence, flexibility, and insight when it matters most.
That's for sure. That's the name of the game for us.
All right. So, Tyler, for our audience who may want to reach out and have questions, how this would work for them, what's the best way to learn more about the good work you do there at Elite Extra?
Yeah. So if they just go, to eliteextra.com, so eliteextra.com, we have all of the information that you need there. If you want to dive into, our main routing and dispatch solution for your own drivers, that reverse logistics process with returns automation that we had talked about, as well as delivery network, you're going to find all of the information you can there. And if you want to meet to kind of talk one-on-one, again, there's some simple forms that they can fill out and get in touch with us.
And Tyler, Elite Extra is part of that Epicor family, that big
Correct.
Epicor family, which our dealers have grown to trust because it's, all the way back to the parts catalogs and all that. I mean,
Yep.
this is squarely the business that Epicor is in as well.
Yep. Yeah. And when Epicor first acquired us, they had looked at kind of everybody in there and said, "Hey, Elite Extra is the tip of that spear. This is what we want," and we definitely kind of continue to push it forward for both Epicor and Elite Extra as a whole.
Tyler, thank you so much for today. Great
Yeah.
information.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Everybody, if you want to reach out and work with the best, that's Elite Extra. Go to eliteextra.com. Tyler Stevens with us here today. Sarah, great information. And I always learn a lot from these segments.
Mhm.
I do too, Ted and Tyler. It's exciting to have you on the Fixed Ops Roundtable and looking forward to hearing more stories on how you're helping dealers with these logistics.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. It was very nice to meet you both.
Tyler Stevens, everybody, with Elite Extra here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.